Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this April showery day. Welcome, come on in. Thank you for coming to our community breakfast. My name is Karen King. I am the Director of Community Affairs for the Office of New Haven Affairs. And our office hosts these community breakfasts on the first Thursday of the month during the academic year. We hold them in various places around campus. So if you're not already on our mailing list, please put your name and email address here so that you know where we're going to be. Next month, we will be here, and then we'll have our hiatus until September. With me, the Office of New Haven Affairs, our core mission is to connect members of the New Haven and Yale communities. We have a ton of great people who help us carry out that mission. My right-hand person is Jennifer Mello, who has been with us since July 1st, recent Yale grad, and has been doing a bang-up job. Who else is here from the office? We may have some people online as well, but I encourage you to say hello to Jennifer and make your acquaintance. We are going to get started in a few minutes. Well, actually in a couple minutes. I just want to go over some of the fantastic things that are taking place on campus this month. There is a bumper crop. So the first one is the Yale, we have a Pathways program in our office that offers STEM classes for free to local public school students. And we also have an Arts and Humanities program that is quite wonderful. So if you know a high school student who is interested in coming to campus for free for a 2-week academic program that focuses on the arts and humanities, they'll be visiting the School of Art, Yale Special Collections, our local museums, to bumper crop of arts and humanities content. All these classes are going to be taught by Yale faculty and graduate students. But there is an application for this Yale Pathways Arts and Humanities Summer Scholars Program that is due on April 4th, which by my estimation is tomorrow. So if they haven't already filled this out, please ask them to go online. For people in Zoom land, we're going to put that in the chat. The program dates are July 21st through August 1st. And again, every day on campus, it's a free program. And I encourage students who are interested in the arts and humanities who are in high school to apply. Next, this is a big weekend for Yale University. Our new president, Maury McGinnis, is having her official inauguration from the 4th through the 6th on campus. There are a ton, besides the actual installation, there are a ton of great events that are going to take place, that everything is open to the community. There are open houses, there are panels, symposia. So please log on to the special website that has all the details about the inauguration. You all have that QR code in your hands for you online. Visit the website and please join us. Next, the New Haven Hiring Initiative is an initiative that the university has embarked upon for quite a few years now. That department here at Yale is in our HR department, and its sole focus is to hire New Haven residents for jobs here at Yale. They have a partnership with the Q House where they offer an employment readiness program twice a month on the first and third Mondays of the month. Each of the programs features a local employer who will talk about opportunities for engagement at their respective organizations. CONCAT will be the featured speaker on Monday at 6 p.m. So they're going to talk about their no-cost programs for youth and adults who are unemployed and seeking new careers in the medical, biotech, and culinary fields. So that program is on Monday, the 7th at 6 p.m. for an hour. Next, we have a lot of stuff going on campus. Angela Davis will be coming back to campus to offer 2 lectures in a series called the Tanner Lectures on Human Values. So these are 2 free lectures that are open to the public. They're going to be held at the Humanities Quadrangle on York Street. Her first lecture is Tuesday, April 15th at 4:30. She's going to talk about abolition, transforming fields and disciplines. And the next day at 4:30, she's going to talk about abolition, learning from global trajectories. Certainly a lot to learn there. So please, so if you want to come out, see Angela Davis, please, it's free and open to the public. Space is limited, so get there early so that you can grab your space. They do have overflow as well. The Schwarzman Center, who's been at the Schwarzman Center? Awesome. What did you see a performance? Yeah. You took a tour? Yeah, it's a great space. Oh yeah, of course. You came to our breakfast last one. Thank you. Well, the Schwarzman Center is, and it is a mecca for everyone on campus and throughout New Haven to come to experience just a wide variety of art exhibits, installations. I'm going to highlight one event that's coming up. So on Thursday the 17th, there is going to be an experience called The Gift. And The Gift itself is a book that is written by a national physicist that talks about two stars whose fates are intimately connected. The great thing about this installation is you come into Commons and you'll be in this immersive experience where you have the tactile of going through the book, but there's also surround sound of fantastic music with a score. So it's an experience, 15-minute rotations, free and open to the public. Please register for a slot and come and experience The Gift. It is touring worldwide. Kirk Franklin is coming to New Haven later this month. So if you're familiar with the Institute of Sacred Music, the Dr. Shelley, who leads this department, brings fantastic people here every year to meet with the community, help to share their knowledge and engage. So Kirk Franklin will be here on August 24th from 7 to 9. He's going to be at Emmanuel Baptist Church. It's a masterclass, so he's going to critique some student compositions. He's going to discuss his life and work, and he's also going to direct a live choir himself. Registration will be on Monday at 10 a.m. If you would like to join, please make sure you log on at 9:30 and start refreshing because those tickets will probably sell out quickly. However, there's going to be a live stream as well. So more information is on that page. Yoga. I know there's some yoga practitioners here. There is a yoga for early professionals session that will be taking place on Wednesday the 30th at 5 p.m. at Schwarzman. It is, what kind of yoga? Vinyasa yoga. You can tell I practice yoga. Vinyasa yoga. It's a rejuvenating yoga session, free and open to the public. It is guided by an instructor, so please come on and register and come out. Jennifer is helping to organize it. Last but not least, we talk about films a lot at the university. There are tons of showings that are taking place almost on a daily basis. The university has created one website you can go to see what's going on in terms of film at Yale. So our last poster has information about that. So there's a film hub. You go there, you could search, look at the calendar, and come out for these free showings. Are there any questions? Lots going on. All right. Well, thank you. I'm going to hand this over to my colleague, Jennifer, to introduce our speakers.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Karen. Okay, over to my left, we have Mario. Mario is a fifth-year PhD student in virology, working on understanding how dangerous viral pathogens emerge from animals to cause pandemics and how to prevent future human diseases. He likes to discuss how viruses in general, how they emerge in humans to cause disease, and to discuss with the community the importance of virology research, vaccines, and how everyone can contribute to helping prevent future viral outbreaks. And on my right, we have Sasha. Sasha is a fifth-year PhD candidate in the Department of Immunobiology at Yale. She studies how our bodies respond to viruses in order to discover better treatments for infections and vaccines. Sasha is passionate about explaining how the immune system works to anyone who will listen, whether it's her parents, members of her community, or future generations of scientists. Please join me in welcoming Mario and Sasha.
Thank you so much for the invitation and for allowing us to be here. Can everyone listen us well? Okay, good. All right. Before starting, we have a question section at the end, but if there's any burning questions right between the presentation, please don't hesitate to raise your hand. We will be happy to be interrupted. So today we thought that it was perhaps important to talk about avian flu. And the reason why we think it is that perhaps you have listened some news recently about this particular pathogen. So as we remember recently, we've been through a pandemic, the COVID-19, and our purpose here is all of us to be informed, to be very prepared and try to prevent another pandemic like COVID-19. Oops, it's not working. Technical problems. Great. All right, but is it okay? Good. All right. So what is avian flu? This is a pathogen that particularly is exists in wild birds like ducks. And why do we care about it? Because we as humans also interact with a lot of kinds of birds like poultry, chickens, and other domestic birds. So when some of these strains, which is what we call the variants of this pathogen, jump from a wild bird to a domestic bird, then humans can get in touch with this potentially dangerous strain that will cause a big outbreaks that will make people sick. And so far, the route of transmission is just like humans usually just get this pathogen from birds. So far, we have not seen efficient human-to-human transmission, like, for example, what we observed in COVID-19. So for now, we are safe, but for a few years have been seeing an increase on the infections of these avian variants of the flu virus in different birds and also other animals that is making scientists concerned. And that's why we think it's important to address this problem. Okay, Sasha, could you get the next one? Sorry. All right. So what is avian flu? Does anyone remember the pandemic or have heard about the pandemic from 1918, Spanish flu? So that was a really bad one, right? Many people died. And if you didn't know about the origin of this flu, this viral flu, this 1819 flu came from birds. And this is why we think that usually the variants from birds are dangerous, because they usually make people sicker than the normal ones that we experience every year. And after that, like many years after, in 1996, that's when we recorded the first human case of H5N1, which is the strain that we are going to primarily talk about today, which is also originated from birds. And from there, we've seen a little bit less than 1,000 human cases from 2003 to December of 2024. And it's important to also highlight that even though we observed this avian flu H5N1 in 1996, we didn't really observe a lot of movement of these strains in birds in the wild. Like there's people who are doing surveillance in birds to see how it's moving. But in 2023, scientists started to observe an increase of these avian flu strains in birds. So they started to sound the alarm that, hey, a lot of these bird flu strains are now in birds. We need to be careful. We didn't listen, and as of March 2024, now this bird flu strain jumped into cows, which is probably the news that some of you have listened recently. So now we have a lot of different strains of bird flu jumping into cows, and we know that humans also interact with cows. So as a consequence of this, Like we have seen an increase of human cases from 2024, where at least in the USA, just in this country, we have seen now 70 human cases, 41 from cattle, 24 from poultry, and as of now, we have seen 3 hospitalizations and 1 death. So it is important to start understanding like why this is happening and how can we prevent. So how does this happen? How do we usually get like a pig outbreak? Like this diagram has shown us that these bird flu strains are in dogs. They jump into domestic animals that can interact, whether it's poultry birds or cows that can interact with people, and then the virus will be have the opportunity to change its genetic code to potentially being more dangerous. So usually, like these bird flu strains are just randomly circulating in birds, but there are some things that might allow this to enhance its properties. Fortunately, we are not here yet where the bird flu is transmitted between human and human, but we are where we're seeing a lot of sporadic human cases. So what we want to try to do now is try to prevent the virus to change. So what is a flu virus? And this is a short name for influenza virus. And these are pathogens that are transmitted or spread through the respiratory routes. Like we all have a cold or a very bad cold. These are influenza viruses. And there are a lot of variants. This is what we call a strain. And as we just discussed, these different flu strain variants, they exist across birds and mammals. So there are 2 components that we want to discuss today that will be very important later on. The first component is called NA, and the other one is HA. And these ones are really key and important features of each strain that will dictate how or which animals this will infect. What we have here is literally influenza virus. Scientists can look at this through a technical microscopy. And I don't know if it's possible, but there are like some like small stacks here. These are HA and NA. So these are the small components of the virus that will dictate which animals they infect and whether or not they are able to spread between humans. So we can literally see the virus looking at the microscope. Very, very high resolution. So how did this happen? Let's say that we have a virus that is existing in dogs. This is an orange virus, right? Then we have the seasonal ones from human. These are the green ones. But what if there's an animal or a host, which is what we call it, that can be infected with both? Something interesting about flu virus is that it is composed of different segments in its genetic code. So let's say 8 different segments that are orange would infect a pig, and then 8 different segments that are green will infect the same pig. The pig will have the ability to create a new strain that will have the potential to cause disease and spread better than humans. And this is how different influenza strains arise in the human population. This is how the 2009 pandemic of flu emerged. So these resulting new viruses might have new properties that, as I just mentioned, can potentially cause severe disease or enhance ability to spread in humans. And this is what we want to stop to happen right now. Oops. Sorry about that. Okay, but let's take a step back and think about how HA and NA is enabling this. On dogs and in birds, we have a receptor, which this is the component of humans or whatever animal that will use the virus to enter our cells and cause us or makes us sick. So the type of receptor of component in dogs is called alpha-2/3. The type that is present in humans is alpha-2/6. So when we have like a bird virus or avian virus, they primarily use just the dog receptor or the dog component. When we have like a human virus, they will primarily use a human. But when these 2 viruses infect an animal that have the 2 types of components, that's when this a process called reassortment will happen, and is where the different pieces of the flu virus will combine and create a new one. And this is exactly what we're seeing, what we saw with pigs, as I mentioned in 2009. Yes. Yes, it has like a wide different rate of fatality. In chickens, it's really, really fatal. It kills like about 99% of the chickens. In cows, the cows survive to the infection, and this is why they have been able to be spreading to humans. So as you can see, there's like a different range of kind of fatality across animals. Yes.
Spread to humans by eating the chicken or cow or pig or.
Right, yes. So
They don't have the microphone, can you repeat the question for people?
oh yes, sorry. We were just asked like how this virus can transmit to human and if it be transmitted like by eating this their food or their milk. Yes, this is something that we will talk about later, but as just a brief response, like if, for example, the chicken meat is not properly cooked and the chicken was infected, we have the risk to become ill with this virus. If we drink the milk that was not properly processed and the cow was infected, humans have the risk to get in touch with the virus. So this is why it's important to cook properly the meat that we are about to eat, or ingest pasteurized milk, which is really, really key to prevent this spread. Yes. Thank you. Yes, so by this process called reassortment, this is where new strains will arise. And but why is this important? My friend Sasha will talk to you about how this virus can become pathogenic and why is this the key reason.
Can everyone hear me? Good, okay. Yeah, so I'm an immunologist. So we're gonna talk a little bit about the immune response to H5N1, to bird flu. So the immune system is how our body responds to a foreign pathogen and fights off a potential infection. And the immune system has something that we call memory. So it's similar to human memory. It's able to remember when it's already seen a previous pathogen. But because H5N1 usually infects birds and very rarely infects humans, the immune system doesn't have the memory response to this new virus. So that raises two potential things. Either the immune system is weak and is not properly able to respond, or the immune system essentially overreacts. So it says, oh my God, new virus, I'm freaking out. And this we might know and have familiarity with because the COVID-19 pandemic was partially caused by cytokine storm, right? So we had a hyper response to this brand new virus. So the same thing can happen in H5N1. So on the screen here, you see this popsicle looking thing. The popsicle looking thing is actually that HA protein that Mario, or an artistic rendering of the HA protein that Mario showed you an actual electron micrograph of earlier. And so the HA protein has the head, or the popsicle portion, and also the stalk, or the popsicle stick. And so the head is very varied, and this is what actually allows different HA proteins to infect different cells from different species. But the stalk, the popsicle stick, is a lot more shared. So this has similarity between different strains of H5, or different strains of flu, between H5N1 and other strains. And so the immune system really likes to target the shared area because then it renders the immune system with more broad recognition of a variety of different strains. And this is also what we want the immune system to recognize. And we know this partially because, again, Mario mentioned the 1918 flu, H1N1. There are still people living who were exposed to H1N1. It was circulating in the population 1918 to 1957, and then there was another outbreak in 1977, and the strain is still circulating. So actually, H5N1 and H1N1, so bird flu and then the 1918 flu, they belong to the same HA group. So they share some of the features in the popsicle stick and the stalk of HA that are similar, that the immune system can recognize. So actually people who were exposed to H1N1 and previously infected have some immunity that allows them protection against H5N1, against bird flu as well. Unfortunately, we can't go testing every single person and making sure, do they or don't they have this prior immunity? Do they have cross protection from H1N1 that would also protect them from bird flu? But we do know that some people do have that immunity and are protected from more severe disease. And so again, we mentioned how random mutations from reassortment can allow H5N1 to now infect a human host, a new host. But actually, these mutations that can occur from infecting a new type of cell also give the virus other strengths and other reasons that it can become more infectious or cause more severe disease in people. So those mutations can result in changes to the virus that allow it to bind more tightly to the receptor on human cells, so it's able to more effectively infect human cells. Those mutations can change how fast the virus replicates, so how fast new viruses are produced that then infect new cells, cause more severe disease. And it also can give the virus more advantages in avoiding the immune system. So it can change the virus to actually dampen the immune response and also then cause more severe disease. So not only do we worry about the virus jumping from host to host, so jumping from a bird to a cow or jumping from a cow to a human, because now we're infecting new species, we also worry about it jumping because it gives the virus mutations that can cause more severe disease. And now I want to talk a little bit about how H5N1 looks clinically. So what does the bird flu look like? There's two main strains right now circulating. One is the B3.13 strain. This is the one that's primarily coming from cattle. And then the D1.1 strain, which is primarily coming from poultry. B3.13 is kind of associated with more mild symptoms. So this is the one, the main symptoms of it are conjunctivitis or pink eye, fever, and then respiratory symptoms, so like cough, those kinds of things. D1.1 is a little bit more severe. It's more associated with pneumonia. So pneumonia is the more severe respiratory symptom. People have to get oxygen supplementation and have trouble breathing when they're infected with this strain. And how do we treat it? If someone is developing signs or symptoms of having bird flu, of having H5N1, we treat it actually the same way that we usually treat the regular flu. So we start them on oseltamivir, which is also Tamiflu. So we begin the same treatment that we do with any case of flu. This drug stops the replication of the virus. So it interferes with, again, producing new viruses. It slows down the course of infection. And this has been pretty effective. Again, the majority of people are recovering from bird flu. It's not like everyone is dying or severely hospitalized or anything. But, you know, we've been talking about how much the flu virus can mutate, right? So we do have concerns about the virus becoming resistant to this drug or becoming resistant to other antivirals. So we are constantly trying to develop new treatments. And then, of course, if someone is having a severe respiratory symptoms, if they're having pneumonia, we can also put them on oxygen. So give them, you know, anywhere from just giving them an oxygen tank that they can breathe through to ventilating them, et cetera. And I think now Mario will talk about some of the research that's being done, including ways to develop new antiviral therapies.
Yep. Thank you. All right, so now that we know the risk of these bird flu strains, the different ones that are circulating, how they can cause big outbreaks and become more dangerous, what are actually scientists doing to try to prevent this? One of the things that people that are involved in virology or epidemiology is like they're doing the surveillance of how these different bird flu variants are spreading in the country. And why is this important? Well, if we do a surveillance of how the virus is changing, like we will have an idea of what potentially they will cause in the future, right? We also think it's important to do the surveillance because if we identify some mutations that might be conferring this virus to be more pathogenic or more transmissible, we need to focus our efforts in that particular region and enhance the measures to try to prevent the spread or to try to cut outbreaks. And how is this being done? Okay, sorry about that. Could you change? So how is this being done? Like the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, is working closely with every single state epidemiology lab to try to gather the new genetic information. Like scientists actually take the virus from different people, from different cattle, from different poultry, And through a technique called sequencing, we will be able to see how the genetic code of these viruses are changing. And it's important to store this information so that we can assess how they're spreading through the country and which regions we need to focus on. It's also important to understand right in the laboratory how these viruses might be able to cause disease or transmit. And this is why once we identify these strains, some scientists are also isolating these viruses in their laboratories to try to look or assess the risk that posed by these different strains that have these different mutations. And to do this, we will be able to see how this virus is causing disease in animal laboratories. In this case, ferrets is a very, very useful model that scientists have been using to assess both the disease, but also the capacity to transmit. Because ferrets express, do you remember those types of receptors that we talk about? The ferrets express also the two types of both receptors from both the human and birds. And this is why this is a very useful model to assess the risk. So this is why scientists are intrigued to assess the risk by these viruses to become pathogenic or to cause the disease in humans or how they spread, which is what we will call transmission. And this is important to assess the risk. So by assessing these ones, just as a general summary, we will assess efficiently their capacity to infect, whether or not they do it efficiently, to cause disease and transmit. And this is important because, as Sasha just mentioned, like some of these mutations might confer resistance to the current countermeasures. And by using these animal models, we can also test that. So some of the people that are currently working on this is Dr. Sima Lagdaola. She's at Emory, and she's studying how the chiral isolates behave in these ferret models and how they are, and whether or not they're pathogenic or whether or not they're transmissible. Professor Yoshihiro Kawaoka, he's a very renowned scientist in influenza studies. He's studying the human isolates that have been detected from Texas or from other states to see in ferrets how they behave and try to come with a nice assessment of how they potentially will become pathogenic or transmissible. And lastly, so another thing that scientists are really doing and trying to do is to develop the next generation of vaccines that will prevent both disease and transmission. So we all got the COVID-19 vaccine, right? And that vaccine itself has saved millions of lives because it's really good at preventing disease. Like it makes us like better to encounter this COVID-19 virus. But although it's really, really good at preventing disease, these vaccines cannot prevent transmission still. And scientists still don't know how to develop better vaccines to prevent transmission. Why is this important? Why do we, if we don't get sick, why do we care about transmission? And it's because every time that a virus replicates, even if it doesn't make you sick, the virus will have the chance or opportunity to mutate and change. And in one of those chances, potentially the virus will acquire new mutations that will evade our current immunity and will become more pathogenic. And this is what we want to prevent with transmission blocking vaccines. And in order to do this, scientists are struggling or are racing to create what we call mucosal vaccines. What is a mucosal vaccine? Imagine that your body is a castle and your immunity are the soldiers that are through your blood, right? The Moderna vaccine gives you a lot of soldiers to your blood, and they're really, really good at blocking the virus or fighting the virus when it's already inside. But what we don't have with these vaccines are soldiers that will prevent the virus to enter to your body. Let's say influenza or COVID-19 are respiratory viruses. The Moderna vaccine or all of the other vaccines that we have do not create soldiers or antibodies that will block the virus from you to, or prevent the virus from infect us. And what we want to acquire with these mucosal vaccines is to really induce this capacity of the body to create the soldiers at the portal of entry. In this case, the nasal cavity. And there are people working actively on this, or Ona Kikiwasaki, who is here at Yale. She's doing mucosal vaccines against seasonal and now these avian flu strains, trying to leverage this mucosal immunity to try to protect and prevent transmission. And there are also people, for example, nearby us at New York in Mount Sinai, Adolfo and Florian Kramer, they are trying to come up with what we call universal flu vaccines. And these universal flu vaccines are also focusing on the conserved features that Sasha just talked to us from the HA. And if you are able to focus your immune responses to these, then you will be able to block multiple strains of flu at the same time. So now that we have this knowledge, scientists are rushing to try to do this and try to prevent this H5N1 to become a pandemic. But how do we all can contribute to this? Well, there are some measures that we can try to implement so we don't become like susceptible or we do not allow the virus to keep mutating. One of those is, of course, avoid touching with wild birds and overall wild animals, especially if they're dead. If you see like a bird in the street or if you see like an animal in the street that is dead, please, we should stay away from them. We should also try to avoid consuming raw milk or raw meat that is not properly cooked. In this case, the pasteurization really helps to kill all the viruses that are potentially, like if the cow was infected and the milk was not pasteurized, the virus will not be killed and we will be able to become infected. How do we know this? Well, there have been some laboratory studies this past year where people took raw milk from infected cows. They gave it to mice in the laboratory and all of the mice were dead. So we need to be careful with this and it's important to understand. We also need to avoid giving our pets raw food and raw milk, especially cats are susceptible to H5N1 strains of bird flu. We have had some outbreaks in New York and other nearby places where people give raw food to their pets and cows and they get sick and they also die. And again, the cat will die, but it will also increase the chance for us to get exposed to this virus and allow this transmission chain to start to happen. Of course, it's also important to try to prevent our pets to interact with wild animals. And lastly, but perhaps most important, is to try to get vaccinated. Like, although we still don't have a bird flu vaccine, as Sasha just mentioned, there are some components that are conserved across the flu vaccines that we have versus the H5N1, and that will still give us some degree of protection. So it's important to get vaccinated. And now that we have this knowledge, what is more important, even that everything that we talk about, is to keep rolling this information to people. The most important thing is to try to keep, now that you have everything and all this information, it's important to give it to the people you know, so they can also be protected and help scientists to prevent H5N1 or bird flu to cause another pandemic. And I think this is it. So we are happy to take any questions.
Okay, so if you have a question, raise your hand. If I ask that you use the microphone so that people in Zoom world can hear you. Thank you. And also, if you're in Zoom, raise your hand and then we will call on you.
Thank you for your presentation. On the map of the United States, it seemed like the problem is in the West. And I know of a farmer in Vermont that offers raw milk to people that stop by the farm. I think the trucks that pick it up, it gets pasteurized, but people are welcome to go and get raw milk. And I was just wondering if that is a concern.
That is definitely a concern. I think at this point, we should be really, really careful about avoiding at all costs, if it's possible, to consume raw milk. Because yes, right now it seems that the problem is in the West, but we just don't know if a wild bird, like a month ago, we had like a poultry chicken here in New Haven infected with H5N1. It was detected, right? So even though the problem is right now in the West, there are wild birds circulating across all the country. And we don't know when a wild bird will interact with a chicken or a cow present in the East, and it will start an outbreak. So it's important to, if it's possible, we should try to avoid consuming raw milk and raw food.
And I think as Mario mentioned to the previous question, H5N1 is really deadly in chickens, right? So in general, there's not a lot of chickens surviving, but it's not deadly in cows. So farmer might not know that their cow is even infected. So they might not know that the milk is also infected.
Following that theme, COVID-19 poisoned the well for many people outside of this room on their receptivity to analyses and suggestions by scientists and public health folks. Raw milk, in fact, is an example of this. How are you guys going to fix that?
That's a good question. I think we need to start like doing these kind of settings, you know. I think it's important from the public to raise any concern. And I think we need to be as transparent as we can, understanding everyone's perspective, but also try to come up with a central team that this is for the benefit of all of us. Which is an important point. Do you have another insight?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that was really challenging was convincing people about the safety of vaccines, the necessity for vaccines. And I actually think that having a mucosal vaccine, again, as we mentioned, that drawbridge protection is going to be really important, because people said, okay, you get the COVID-19 vaccine, it'll prevent you from getting COVID. But of course, what we were trying to do is prevent severe disease. And it was extremely effective at keeping people from ending up in the hospital, from ending up on ventilators. But it doesn't stop infection, right? I'm sure at this point, basically everyone in the room has been infected, whether or not they were vaccinated. But these vaccines actually would stop the infection as well. And they also might be less invasive. So some of the types of mucosal vaccines that are being developed would be like a nasal spray, for example, which I think people would be more encouraged to do than an injection.
Did that answer your question? Okay.
Yes, hi, good morning. I see that figure that it's 70 for national total cases. Was that for last year, 2024?
Yes, this is a little bit outdated. Yes, yes. Good catch.
What effect, if any, will the current climate in Washington, D.C. that's closing lots of research institutions or lots of programs that do research and on viruses and illness and all kinds of things have on this program that's trying to develop ways to prevent this in humans, this illness, or in other animals?
Yeah. Just to clarify, are you talking about the political climate? Or-
Yes.
Yes.
I think so,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. I mean, it will definitely. It will definitely affect. Unfortunately, right now there has been a lot of cut in science that will dramatically affect our capacity to respond to these outbreaks. Unfortunately, all the cutting in funding for this will leave us more susceptible, not only to this, but many other, and maybe a new coronavirus will emerge, maybe another kind of virus will emerge, and we just will not have the resources. So this is why it is important for all of us, even all of you that are here, to talk about the importance of science and how we need to invest on this. But sadly,
And to give two very concrete, specific examples
Yeah.
around things that the current administration is doing that are going to have a direct negative effect. One is Trump withdrew from the World Health Organization. So Mario mentioned how the Centers for Disease Control, which is a US agency, is tracking different mutations in the virus. The World Health Organization does this too. And so if we're part of the World Health Organizations, we're able to collaborate with scientists around the world and track what's happening internationally, not just within the country. So that has a direct effect on how well we're able to track the mutations of the virus. And then another thing is that, you know, traditionally the way that both immunology and infectious disease research is funded through the National Institute of Health is through one institute. So it's an Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. Again, the proposed changes to the National Institute of Health would split it up into three. So its own Institute for Allergy, own Institute for Immune Diseases, and its own Institute for Infectious Disease. And that's by design so that basically all of the funding from infectious disease research can be cut. So yeah, definitely, I mean, I think the politicians in Connecticut generally tend to be very pro-science, but if you know folks in other states who are represented by other politicians definitely spread the word and save this kind of research.
So my question is, I'm wondering, my fear of 2020 is always alive and well. I'm really curious, guesstimate even. So how far out are they from, realizing something, whether it be vaccination or another medicine that would help us with the transmittal or prevent it? And two-part, where's China on this?
I don't know. Do you know anything about like either research?
And I ask that because they always seem to not only introduce wonderful viruses, but they always seem to contain it and isolate it and move on quite quickly.
Yeah, regarding the treatment, we currently do not have a specific treatment for bird flu. Is that what you're asking? Like how close we are? There are research going on. Like there's some people, I mean, there are research articles about mucosal vaccines that have been successful, like live attenuated that will protect you, but that still has not, jumped into clinical trials. So, and this goes together with the current political climate, right? If there's not funds to do that, we are now very vulnerable. And this is why it's important to try to let everyone know how important this kind of research is. Regarding China, what can you repeat that question?
I'm curious as to where they are with these, with their information or messaging concerning
Yes, for example, there was a paper published 2 days ago from China that they developed a new, intranasal mission. It's still not in clinical trials, but it's there. So this is another thing, right? If we really become vulnerable to respond to this, other countries will take the lead. And we want to be leading to protect not only us, but the whole world. So, yes.
Can I have the pointer?
Oh, yes.
I changed to this slide because I want to point out that in 2020, by the time we knew about SARS coronavirus, it was already in this stage, right?
Yes.
So it was already spreading from human to human. It was spreading across countries. Thankfully, where we are at H5N1 is much earlier. So we're definitely before the pandemic stage. It's sporadic human cases. It's not spreading from human to human. And that's a huge potential to interfere before we get anywhere near what happened with the COVID-19 pandemic.
Hi. My community center just started raising chickens so we can have some eggs. And I know we'll probably keep it clean and all that, but what is the potential risk for a locally, farmed chickens?
I think the biggest thing is to keep them from interacting with wild birds as much as possible, right? So enclosed spaces. I don't know, are there other tips?
Yeah, if you notice that a chicken gets sick, right away, inform everyone in your community, wear like mask, gloves, and inform the local authorities, the public health authorities to come and look at it. But we should be now really extremely careful. Like as Sasha said, I think the main barrier will be try to avoid them or prevent them to interact with wild birds. But if you notice that one chicken is dead, call immediately the local authorities and try to stop interacting with them. This is a good question. So we have like the state laboratory of public health. I don't exactly remember the email, but if you look on the internet, or we can look at resource about this and send it to you all later. We can call those, and people that are trained will take a look at the chicken, will take a test, and they will say whether or not this is infected with bird flu. Yes. Is there a way to communicate that later on with
Yes,
everyone? Okay.
absolutely. Are there any more questions in the room?
Do you have an up-to-date list of which mammal species have been infected?
Yes. So we have like cows are the primary, right? And unfortunately, we've seen now a couple of mutations that are, making the virus better to adapt to mammals. There are other animals that have been, recorded. Like, for example, mice that are nearby these farms, like they have also been able to get infected naturally from the cows. So it's important to take that in consideration. Some squirrels have been, not here in Connecticut yet, but some squirrels in other places have become positive. So now there's a few other mammals that have been able to be naturally infected while, having contact with wild birds. So this is why it's important to just try to avoid contact with wild animals, even if there are other kinds of mammals.
And I think we can send 2 resources. So it's the Connecticut Department of Agriculture that you should contact if you have cattle or poultry that you think might be infected. And also the American Veterinarian Medical Association has tips for what to do if you have flocks. So we can send both of those.
Yes. So when you send the links to me, what we'll do is we'll add them to the description of the YouTube video that we'll post, and then everyone will have access. Cool. Are there any questions from anyone on Zoom? We have time for one more question. Whoop. There you go. We're coming to you.
Hi, do you think it will actually reach the human-to-human transmission stage?
If we don't intervene, possibly yes. So this is why we are now a little bit over the right time to try to prevent this from happening. And I think the right thing to do is, follow the measures, but also, try to convince the local authority that this is like a real risk and that we need to be focusing on this.
We have a question from Laura Fawcett. Laura, you can unmute and ask a question.
Yeah, it's just a very quick comment on the woman who was asking about raising chickens in New Haven and protecting them from wild birds. There would be 2 ways to do that. One is to be sure you have a shelter above to prevent droppings from wild birds, but also be cautious on how you're feeding the chickens because it can draw rats, and rats would be the other contact that we had in our neighborhood. A lot of rats related to raising chickens and having food on the ground or in an open bowl.
Thank you,
Thank
Laura.
you. Thank you
That's
so much
great.
for
Thanks,
that.
Laura.
Okay.
Well, thank you everyone for joining. I want to give Sasha, I'm going to give our presenters another hand this morning. Thank you, Mario and Sasha. We learned so much this morning. I'm sure you guys are going to stay for a few more minutes. Again, thanks for joining. We will be here on the first Thursday of May. I hope to see you then. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.